Hi, everybody. I'm Baldwin Berges, and I'm here with my colleague based in Cairo, Hesham Saad. How are you today, Hesham?
I'm fine, Baldwin. How are you?
I'm great, thank you very much. Hesham and I are doing a special set here today. We're going to talk about the rising consumer, but more specifically about the food opportunity in the frontier markets. And it, it's become very clear over the past few years that the consumer has become more and more central to investors' investment strategies. It seems like there is a big awakening that there are going to be millions and millions of consumers achieving the middle class status in the next decades. And so, what we're seeing is what we've been saying for a long time is that a large percentage of the household income in frontier markets and fast developing markets actually goes to the food basket. And one thing that really caught a lot of people's attention, I think, is that Warren Buffett recently decided to buy Heinz. And although it's not in a frontier market, I think it sort of shows the dynamics of why you should own food businesses because regardless of where your economic cycle goes, uh, there's one thing that people won't cut down on, and that is their food spending. Now, Isham, the opportunity in food and frontier markets is enormous, isn't it?
Yes, of course, Baldwin. Um, Actually, if you look to the recent M&As in frontier markets, most recent would be Danone in the French dairy group Danone in France, increasing its stake uh, from a minority stake of 30% to a majority stake into the Moroccan dairy leader company, um, CL. Um, and the amazing thing is that they were willing to pay more than 28 times of 2013 expected earnings per share.
Wow.
Uh, that makes the case very clear that investors interested in the region, knowing the consumer business mechanism and its growth potential, okay, they pay this premium for growth, of course.
Yeah, and this is so is it only about Morocco, or is this essentially a buying into more of a regional strategy? What do you think this is?
Um, Actually, business opportunities are plenty,
Mm,
but for some reason, in frontier markets, it's hard to get stakes
yeah.
because everybody is attached to to his stake in companies producing gross in revenues and sales of maybe in some cases 100% or more. Companies where ROEs range from 15 to 40%. So it's
Yeah, you know, something you shot was like, we know this also because we have our private equity fund that invests only in consumer facing food biz in Africa. And one of our colleagues there recently said, remember when he said, the secret to being successful in emerging on frontier markets is by first creating capacity and then knowing how to manage it. And I think any intelligent food group knows that. And what I think there's a sort of a race to find people with capacity already and
yeah.
then at least come in and say like we can even help you better manage this now, or is it just tapping into the local companies just to get the access, right? It is you're right,
That's
it is a
completely
fast moving game, isn't it?
yes, that's completely true. And the main reasons behind are are the demand supply gap in food business, the high growth rates of populations, the high portion of these populations spending of their income on food, um, and uh, some consumer preference change trends in consumption. Like for example, in Pakistan, their consumption of milk was extremely small. At this population don't drink milk in the morning or have this cereals with milk like other countries.
Right.
We have their Agro Foods a company, a dairy company, that made 200% gross in 3 years in just revenue. Uh, so, I think that's the case. Yes.
Yes, it's a and so it's really about so what you're seeing is that I guess now that everybody is connected in the world, um, do you think that has an effect on the? So you're just saying that, for example, the habits of the Pakistani people seem to be changing, and they're sort of using more milk. They are using more products that are not particularly form part of their traditional habits. I mean, do you see a shift in people's habits around the world because we're starting to sell them new products, or how does that work?
Yes, it's not only a shift in people habits, it's in their consumption trends, um, development, new knowledge, open to the internet.
Mm,
It's an open world now. We have seen lots of this opportunities, capping on the fact that people are now more picky toward healthy products for example.
right.
Okay, so like 10 to 15 years ago in countries like Egypt, you can see the guy with the bicycle selling milk in the street, fresh milk, of course. Now this has become history.
Mm,
You cannot find anyone in Cairo or major cities buying from these guys. So it's more a formal transformation of the sector. Um,
and it can go very fast. I mean, I've actually lived this myself when I went to Spain in the late '80s. I've actually seen the how fast something can shift from the sort of corner shop culture uh, to the to the big shopping facilities like shopping malls that arise, and
yes.
you can entirely transform a society in a decade. I've seen this with my own eyes, so it's an enormous opportunity there. And if you look at, I mean, I was just gazing around at sort of the biggest listed companies in the sector, and for example, it's quite amazing because, for example, a company like Fan Milk in Ghana, that's up by more than 150% in the last year. You've got Nestle, which is up by more than 60%. It's really impressive that what you're seeing in terms of uh, how investors apparently have started to realize that if you're going to play the consumer, you better go to where most of their wallet goes to. So, what's
Yes.
going on? Like there's another big, an amazing, what I always find an amazing story, which is the Al Marai story in Saudi, right? Um, just if you think about the fact that you can have a major dairy producer in the middle of the Saudi desert, that's kind of incredible, isn't it?
Umrah is a long story to tell, Baldwin. Uh, it's um, it's been a hot issue actually on the table of too many investors
Okay.
around the world. The company was able to generate like 40% on average earning gross for 5 years. Uh, but the company now has some very ambitious expansions. Uh, they have decided to get out of the GCC,
Mm.
farming in African countries like Sudan and Ethiopia, and their
Right.
new business model, if I may say, is now is a little bit questionable by some investors. Um, the thing is that in frontier markets, Baldwin, you find companies with very simple business models. Simple business models. Okay, and you find them having capacity, distribution. Always, I've been always on the run in these markets for like the last 10 years. I didn't find a food company. I didn't visit the management of a food company, and they didn't talk about expansions and growth in sales, growth in earnings. Some amazing things like we have a company in a biscuit producer in Vietnam. It's Kindu. And by the way, most of the food listed companies in Vietnam are their foreign ownership is on the limit.
How does that exactly work? So it's on the limit. And is it there's a ratio that they have to respect of keeping
The
foreign owners versus domestic owners, or how does that
Yes,
work? Okay.
it's 49% by the law,
Okay.
but it is also limited by the company itself,
Mm.
by the company's uh, general assembly. So in companies like uh, Kendo, I think it's 25%, and it's on the limit. You will stand in a long queue to buy like with $200,000 shares in the company.
Right.
The amazing thing that I was telling you is that these companies really have not that issue issues too many issues like we have in other countries. For example, they were able to pass like three raw materials price increase to consumers into 2012. Okay,
Mm.
and the demand and the sales in units, in terms of units sold in 2012, has a gross of like 30%.
Okay.
These countries doesn't really face the usual problems.
Mm.
And
That's
in
it.
a
It's there's
Yes,
so much. The demand is so natural and strong that it comes back to that point about being able to manage your capacity, right?
yes, it is.
That's always a story that comes back, and that's what we have to keep looking out for as investors. Is we have to find the talent that can grow in line with demand, because
Yes.
it's a very fierce competitive environment. So, okay, we're running up to 15 minutes here, so we try to keep these little chats not too short and not too long, just not to take too much time of the listeners. But I want to thank you, Hesham, for taking the time to speak to me about this. It's a huge topic, isn't it? I mean, again, it is the ultimate way to play the consumer story is to play it through those who receive most of the consumer wallet in countries like this, and that's the food industry. So we're going to keep focusing on this across our investment strategies. I mean, we have one specific one for it, which is a private equity strategy, but these kind of companies play an enormous role in our other portfolios as well. So we have an eye on that, don't we?
Yes, of course, Baldwin, we have an eye on that. Just wanted to add that it's very straightforward if you would pay attention to the listed food companies' performance in 2012. They were all double digits. Also in countries that made negative performance on a stock market level. Uh, their year to date, their 2012 price performance ranged from maybe 26% in Aghzia in UAE to 97% for Juhayna in Egypt to 380% in Engro Foods in Pakistan, for example.
Wow. Amazing numbers. Thanks, Hesham.
Thanks, my friend.
Have a good day.
You too, Baldwin. Thanks.